I've got a little bit of a challenge that I came up with for myself. I just thought this would be like a fun little discussion, but basically I wanted to share what my favorite games of each system were in the past. I'm going to be going through this in a few different categories, and I'm just going to be talking about some of my favorite games of all time from each system. Some of these were very hard to choose. I had to choose like one per console, and I'm also like adding in an extra section for PC as well. So basically every console that I've ever owned or played a significant amount of games for. Maybe I didn't own the console myself, but I played it at a friend's house. I still think that counts. Basically, what are my favorite games for each system that I have experience with? So I'm breaking this down into several categories. First off, we've essentially got 5 categories. I've got Nintendo, Microsoft, or I guess Xbox in this case. Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, SEGA, and PC. I definitely encourage you to make your own list as well. Not just of like the different consoles that you've played in the past, but also just, what's your favorite game from every console that you've experienced? And you can include PC as well. In fact, I'm going to have 2 separate categories for PC. I'm sure you could have like several different categories for PC if you want to get into the definitions of like Windows 95, Windows XP, Windows 10. But for me, I'm just going to break it down into 2 categories, PC Classic and PC Modern. But that's going to be at the end of this video. Right now, we're going to start off with the consoles, and the most consoles that I own are from Nintendo's. That's going to be the bulk of this video. It's probably going to be at least half of the games listed here from Nintendo systems. And if I have a physical copy of it on hand, I'll share it on screen. Some of these I do, some of these I don't. Some of them I play digitally, or I don't have the game on me. But I thought it would be fun to just kind of share that moment. So we're going to start off with the Nintendo Entertainment System. I did own a Nintendo Entertainment System, but I didn't own any good games for it. But once the NES Classic came out, and once Nintendo Switch Online became available, I got exposed to a bunch more really solid NES games. That said, I haven't played many of them, but I would say that my favorite NES game is actually Tecmo Bowl. Tecmo Bowl is just a really fun game that you can jump in and out of. You might not necessarily be a fan of sports games, but I think out of like all the vintage old sports games, Tecmo Bowl has to be one of the best. It's definitely a lot of fun. It can be frustrating to play if you're not familiar with the scheme of how the NFL works, but for me, it was a lot of fun. For me, it was like one of the most exciting, flashy NES games out there. And it's just fun to have an NES game that you can pick up and play at any time. There's something like similar to like Mario Tennis, whereas like it's not long and drawn out and it's not full of game overs. It's just, something that you can play, and you can play with a friend, which I haven't, but I'm sure that would be fun too. So yeah, my answer for the NES would be Tecmo Bowl. I think Super Mario Bros. 3 is like kind of close. I haven't actually beaten Super Mario Bros. 3, and I think I've kind of run out of patience with the style of game where it's like, back in the day, those NES Super Mario Bros. Games are really actually hard to beat. So yeah, I think as far as NES game goes, Tecmo Bowl is currently my favorite. For the Super Nintendo, that's also a tricky one because there's a bunch of good ones out there. I never actually owned a Super Nintendo, but the first video game that I ever played, I was like 2 years old when I played it, and I played like one level, died, and then handed the controller back. It was Super Mario World. That was the very first Super Nintendo game I ever played. But it's not my favorite Super Nintendo game. I actually haven't like sat down and beat Mario World either. With all due respect to how great that game is, my favorite Super Nintendo game is Super Punch-Out. And yes, I played it because of the SNES Classic, and it is very addictive. I still haven't beaten it all the way. I haven't like gotten past the bruisers yet. It's a very tough game. It's challenging, and it takes a lot of effort to learn the strategies of how to fight the different boxers. I have not played any other Punch-Out game. It's the only one that I've actually like sat down and played. But it is a lot of fun. I feel like the controls are really smooth. I feel like just getting to know how to beat each of the different opponents in Super Punch-Out is so much fun. So I definitely have to give Super Punch-Out props for that. Okay, moving on. Nintendo 64. Ooh, this one's a toughie because I actually have played a decent amount of Nintendo 64 games. I will count Virtual Console simply because I never owned a Nintendo 64, but I played a bunch of the original version, essentially, of those games. Like, they weren't remastered versions of those games. If it's a remaster, I might consider like putting it into a different category. Like if we're talking like Ocarina of Time 3D, if that might be just on its own for the 3DS. I guess like if you're making your own list, use your discretion where you think remasters are fit. But for me, I have to say that for the Nintendo 64, Paper Mario is my favorite 64 game. It is just so much fun. It was one of the first one of the first JRPGs I've ever played. It was the first game that I played for the Nintendo 64, really. Like, I've had exposure to some of the previous Nintendo 64 games, and like I've known about like Mario Parties and Super Mario 64 and all that, but like I never actually got to sit down, play, and finish a game until Paper Mario, the original Paper Mario, and it is so much fun. I love the goofy personalities of the characters. The combat system is a ton of fun. It's very enjoyable. I love the world and the story. I can gush all day about Paper Mario, and it's funny, it's one of those games that like I've made multiple attempts at like doing a full-on Let's Play, but I just don't have the patience to do something like that. But it's a great game. Paper Mario is a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. For the original Nintendo 64, I have to say it was solid. And it was very late in the life cycle too. It came out in like 2001, I think. So like right as like the Gamecube was coming out. But it was a great addition. I have to say also that Mario Party 2 is a close contender. Like Paper Mario is like right here, and Mario Party 2 is like right there. Because I've had so many great memories of Mario Party 2, I have to at least mention it. That is one of my favorite Mario Party games, definitely. And who could forget Super Mario 64? I love playing Super Mario 64 as well. I just love Paper Mario more. Like, I have such a good time. I think I prefer watching Super Mario 64, especially speedruns, than I do playing it. With all due respect to that game, Paper Mario is, without a doubt, my favorite Nintendo 64 game. Now we're moving on to GameCube. Finally, I can share some of the physical copies that I own. Super Smash Bros. Melee for the GameCube, without a doubt. I would say that this is the best GameCube game. That said, there's still a few GameCube games that are in contention for best game on GameCube that I have not yet played. I think Super Mario Sunshine is a close second. I have not played Wind Waker. I really should. I just haven't gotten into it. In addition, I have never played like the original Metroid Prime or Resident Evil 4, but Super Smash Bros. Melee is a classic game. It is so much fun. It still holds up today. People are still playing this game competitively, professionally. This game has been at recent EVO competitions, which has been incredible. The community is still going strong, and even if you don't play this competitively, if you play it casually, this is still a fun game. It definitely holds up. I definitely love the gameplay mechanics of this, and it is my favorite GameCube game. Again, Super Mario Sunshine is close, but Smash Bros. Melee, yeah, it's Melee. It's a fantastic game. Then we go on to Wii. Guess what? Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I don't care about like putting games of the same series in this because there are so many different consoles that you're still gonna get a good variety. Super Smash Bros. Brawl was my first Smash Bros. And it was also probably like the second game that I really got into. I played this competitively for years, for a long time. I sunk so many hours into this game. It's incredible. I miss it. I pretty much played it until like I played this like hardcore until the game for the Wii U came out. Like even after the Wii U came out, until Smash 4 came out, I was really playing this. And even then, when I got to Smash 4 with the Wii U, it didn't hold up for me. It wasn't I didn't enjoy it as much. And I think just because like I invested so much time and energy into Smash Bros. Brawl, I learned like all the different techniques. I learned all of the different technical skills in the game. Learning like some of the hardest tricks to pull off. This game still takes me back, and the Subspace Emissary by far is the greatest story mode in any Smash Bros. Game. And I really wish that they just brought Subspace back for Smash Ultimate. But with that said, like, that just goes to show like how much fun this game was. This was pretty much the reason I wanted to get a Nintendo Wii, and I am so happy I got it. And I have not only made so many great memories, I've made a lot of great friends from this game, and I cannot say enough about how much I love this game. It's great. Now for the Wii U. Breath of the Wild. You could categorize Breath of the Wild as a Switch game, and I'm sure many people would. However, I got Breath of the Wild because I already owned a Wii U. I didn't have a Switch yet. I'm not about to just buy a Switch when I couldn't afford it. So I bought Breath of the Wild, played it, beat it. It was one of the first open world games I actually ever beat. I have kind of a thing for not finishing open world games just because I get so distracted with side quests. And yeah, there was something just so beautiful about this game. And this was essentially a goodbye to the Wii U. Ending it off with a huge bang and an incredible game. Still to date, one of the best games I've ever played, and I just am floored with like how much content was put into this and how beautifully it was made. And honestly, I don't know if there's an open world game that's gonna top this, because I think this is the best open world game ever. And that's saying a lot, because there's a shit ton of open world games out there. So yeah, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, incredible game. I don't care what platform you play it on, as long as you play it, it's beautiful. Okay, and now for Nintendo Switch, it's gotta go to Super Mario Odyssey. I will say that Super Mario Party is close, but Super Mario Odyssey is very similar to the greatness of Breath of the Wild in that it is full of amazing content. I think the gameplay, the physics of how you control Mario are about as fun and as good as Super Mario 64. And I don't feel like we've truly had a Mario game that controls and feels as good as Super Mario 64 until this game came out. I feel like this is on that same level. There are so many great worlds, there's so many hidden secrets. I love the... Even though there's a bit of a minimal story to it, there is a bit of a story to this game, so I definitely recommend it. I think the experience with Cappy, I felt like a real connection with Cappy, which was kind of missing from Super Mario 64 and Mario Galaxy. I hadn't really felt that connection with anyone, with any of Mario's companions other than Flood. And yeah, the gameplay is just fun, it's easy, it controls very well, and you can tell that they've just put a lot of time into this game, and it's definitely a huge Switch seller. It's the reason I bought my Switch, and I'm very glad I did. Yeah, this game is absolutely worth playing, highly recommend. Now we're getting into the Nintendo handhelds. I have not played as many of the handheld systems. I have not played any of the Game Boy ones. With the exception of Game Boy Advance, I did play a few of those. I'm gonna have to skip the Game Boy ones because I just don't have as much experience with them. Although I have played a few. I'm gonna go straight to DS. So, for Nintendo DS, my favorite DS game is Mario Party DS. I feel like this game doesn't get nearly as much credit as it should. It's an incredible Mario Party. If you just gather this game and a couple of friends with DSs together, you're in for a great time. Even just one other person having a DS. And I mean, technically I own a Nintendo DS and 2 3DSs now, so I guess I could do a three-way a 3-person match in Mario Party. That's what I meant. But yeah, the minigames in this were incredibly original. I thought that the boards felt like the original Nintendo 64 boards. And this is still to date one of my favorite Mario Party games. Is it better than the Nintendo 64 ones? Well, it's better than the first. As for the second and third, I don't think it quite reaches that level, but it's close, and it's pretty solid, and it's still one of my favorites, and I highly recommend it. And when people talk about Mario Party's history, they leave this one out, and it is so good. I have so much love for this game. I will say that Pokemon Platinum is close. It's really close for me. Mario Party DS edges that out. Then Nintendo 3DS. If you know anything about me, you know that I love Fire Emblem, and the reason I love Fire Emblem is because of Fire Emblem Awakening. This game is just so much fun. It was my first exposure to Fire Emblem. It changed the way that I thought about strategy games. I was never interested in them until this game. I mostly loved the game because of the characters. I love the dynamics between them. I love the relationships that everybody has together. I love the bonding that you get between the characters and how you see them grow as you go through your experiences together on the battlefield, and it's just so much fun, and I cannot recommend this enough. Fire Emblem Awakening, still to date my favorite Fire Emblem game, although I haven't played that many. It's an incredible game, love it, and it will forever have a place in my heart. And this was the game that saved Fire Emblem, because if this game did not sell well, this was supposed to be the last out of the Fire Emblem games, and it sold really well. You had Fire Emblem Fates come out after, you had Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia, I think, and then you had Fire Emblem Three Houses come out on the Switch. So the franchise is very much alive now, and it's much thanks to this game. So thank you, Fire Emblem Awakening. Alright, so that's it for the Nintendo games. Now we're moving on to the other ones. So I'm gonna go with Xbox next. Not necessarily because I'm the closest with it. It's actually, I've only played 2 systems worth of Xbox games. Xbox 360. I only got an Xbox 360 fairly recently, like a couple of years ago. And just because, like, they had a bunch of games on there and I could get the system for pretty cheap. So I decided, you know what? I'm gonna just buy the system. I bought it off Craigslist. And then, yeah. I wanted to get a few of the exclusives, even though there weren't that many, just to kind of experience the system for myself. And, well, Gears of War, the original, is my favorite. Now, I haven't finished this game, and to be frank, I kind of got a little bit bored of it, just because of how repetitive it seemed. But this game is definitely, like, a lot of fun to play casually. I think, if you're looking for something to just kick back and just, like, blow the heads off of some aliens, you're perfectly in line for this. This is a fun, kind of relaxing game. It's very violent, but at the same time, it's something that you can just, like, play and kick back. And I think I've sunk the most hours into this out of all Xbox 360 games. That's not saying much, but it's pretty fun. So, yeah, there's my answer for that. Xbox One has to be the Walking Dead collection by Telltale. I know this might be cheating, but I consider them all kind of together. I know that, like, I think the original season, maybe the second season, were on the Xbox 360 and PS3 and PC. It's a multi-plat. What do you expect me to answer for an Xbox game? But honestly, like, just the entire series is incredible. I'm so happy that they finished it, even though Telltale went under a different series, finished it for them. Season 4 has an incredible ending. I definitely recommend you play this. It's an amazing series. It's got highs and lows, don't get me wrong. There's flaws in it. I didn't really care for season 2 or 3 all that much, but man, season 4 definitely makes up for it. It's great. I love it. I highly recommend it. Out of all the Xbox One games, this one was my favorite. And that's it for Xbox. So now we're moving on to PlayStation. So for the original PlayStation, my favorite game, I do not personally own, played it at a friend's house, was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I had so much fun playing that. It was just a game that, like, I wasn't even good at it, but you could just get back, relax, enjoy. It was fun. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, definitely my favorite out of all the PS1 games I've played. It's really solid. It's a fun, enjoyable game that you can just kick back, even if you're not good at it, and you just have fun skating. I enjoyed the controls. The music in the game is really solid. It's a fun environment. It's a lot of fun, and I have a lot of great memories playing it. For PlayStation 2, it has to go to Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. The Sly series has always had a warm place in my heart, but I think the original, even though it doesn't hold up graphically as well as the second and third, I feel like the gameplay of it was the most enjoyable. I like the original style of gameplay, even though I like the Sly 2 style, which they kept with and they stuck with since the end of time, really, for the Sly series. The original Sly Cooper game is just extraordinary. I have to say that The fighting mechanics in it were fun, and it wasn't as much of a stealth game. It was more of a platformer than a stealth game, even though like it was themed around stealth. It was really more of a platformer, but I think that's what brought a lot of the fun into it. I really enjoyed the gameplay mechanics, and this would definitely be like the most fun game to speedrun. So, yeah, I feel like the other games are a lot slower paced because they're stealthier, and this one you can kind of just pick up, play, and finish in 6 hours. So, this has to be my favorite out of the Sly games, and it is my favorite PlayStation 2 game. For PlayStation 3, it has to go to Persona 5, no question. This might be my favorite game of all time. I'm not sure at the moment. I have to think about it. But Persona 5 is an incredible game. It is the JRPG of JRPGs. It is the best JRPG, in my opinion. It has so many great mechanics to it. It capitalized on what made the original Persona games great and made it more fun, made it flashier, made it smoother. I definitely like the approach mechanic where you don't just like run to enemies and hit them head on, but you actually get to hide and then ambush them and get an advantage in battle. And I think that's a ton more fun. I definitely like all the social relationships in this game during the day when you're just an ordinary high schooler. That is also extraordinary, and it's so much fun. And there's so much to do in this game with the pressure of the limited time span as well, that you just want to like make the most out of every moment. Persona 5, without a doubt, so much fun. I love it, and this was a steal for me. Buying it for the PS3, I saved so much money. I think I paid like $30 for this game, when for the PS4 you would have to like pay $60. So, I mean, they still got me. They still got my money with Persona 5 Royale. So, there's that. But Persona 5, without a doubt, my favorite game on the PS3. PS4 is kind of a tough decision, but I'm gonna have to go with Detroit Become Human. This gave me like a lot of great Telltale Walking Dead vibes. I felt a lot of similar emotion with this game. Not as much, but similar. And it was definitely fun. This is definitely a great exclusive to pick up. I definitely recommend it. The game's not that long, so you can get through it fairly quickly. I felt a lot of satisfaction with the choices that I made, but also if you didn't feel the satisfaction, you could go back, you could take a different route. I like the structure of it, and this was a ton of fun. Really enjoyed it. Detroit Become Human, definitely recommend. Spider-Man, I have to say, was probably close on this list, but I haven't gotten through Spider-Man all the way. I don't feel like I can give it a proper assessment, and if I had to pick one of the two, it would be this right now. Alright, so Sega. It's kind of different because I've never actually played any Sega console, but I have the Sonic Mega Collection. And with that, I've played enough Sega Genesis games to at least categorize the Sega Genesis. So, here we go. Sega Genesis. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Yeah, not Sonic 2, not Sonic 3 and Knuckles or any of those games. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. It is probably my favorite puzzle game of all time. There are just... you get to meet all the different robots, and you get to essentially one-on-one battle against them in the story mode, and it's incredibly thrilling. I love the progression of difficulty and how like it starts off pretty easy, but then it gets really difficult like fairly early on. But I still managed to get my way all the way to like level 7, I think. It's definitely a fun game. I actually played it on PlayStation 2, but since it was just like a direct port and it wasn't a remastered version or anything, it counts as a Sega Genesis game in my book. So yeah, for Sega Genesis, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, it's a really fun game, and I definitely recommend you check it out. Now we're down to the PC. I happen to have Steam open on my background. I think it's kind of funny to have it there. So I'm breaking this down into two categories: PC Classic and PC Modern. PC Classic, I'm considering like anything Windows XP or before. So in that case, that would have to go to Disney's Toontown Online, my favorite MMORPG of all time. Definitely a huge hit. It was the first game that I really got sucked into before Super Smash Bros. Brawl. It was incredible. I loved that game so much. I loved the battle system. And you can still play the game today because fans of the game recreated it, and it's available online. They have servers still up today. It's great. It's great. It's such a fun RPG. Even though my friends made fun of me for playing it because, oh, you're playing a children's game, blah, 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 blah. Why don't you play a real game like RuneScape or World of Warcraft or something? But I just love the mechanics. I think it's fun. I love how you get to tour this world of Disney that includes like all these classic characters like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Goofy, and you get to visit these different worlds and fight robots with all these silly gags, and like you would fight the robots with like cream pies and seltzer bottles, and it was banana peels. It was such a fun, joyous game. I love the mechanics of it. I love the strategy aspect of it. There's actually like a pretty high-depth strategy of the game. There's like efficiency as to like which way is the best way to get through the game. I don't necessarily like all the grinding that goes into it, but I get why it exists because it makes you play longer. There's a lot of grinding into it. And yeah, even after you go through all the worlds and beat all the tasks, there's still bosses that you can beat over and over and over and get your levels up on the bosses, which increasingly become more difficult to access, not necessarily more difficult to play. It's not necessarily the best mechanic, but it definitely kept you playing the game and involved, and I made a ton of friends through that game too, which unfortunately I haven't really stayed connected with, but it was a ton of fun. Loved it. One of my favorite games of all time. And then for PC Modern, I'm gonna have to go with Grand Theft Auto 5. That game just was so much fun. It was definitely like one of my favorite open world games. I definitely loved the missions. I wish there were more missions in the game, like high stakes stealth missions, but unfortunately there weren't. But even so, learning the story of the 3 protagonists in the game was great. Michael, Trevor, Frank, and just like going through and, you know, living their lives a little bit, understanding why they've resorted to a life of crime, and going through the different missions and kind of exposing yourself to all the different tactics and having this cool world to explore with all these fun side quests. Like, you didn't just have to do crime. You could also participate in a triathlon or play tennis or go skydiving, and it was so much fun. Grand Theft Auto 5 is a hell of a game. I definitely love it, and I highly recommend it. And so far, it's my favorite Grand Theft Auto game. I haven't played San Andreas yet. I'm thinking that that's the only other one that could really have contention to 5. But with so much detail put into GTA 5, I don't see that happening, really. It's such a great game. So yeah, these were my favorite games from every system Let me know what yours were, and especially if you're a YouTuber, if you make YouTube videos, I recommend doing it in video form. I think it's a lot more fun to just have explanations behind your emotional attachment to all these different games. And I could probably go into further detail, but I'm not going to. I think this would suffice enough as to all the explanations. I've been talking about this for 35 minutes now. I think I'm good. But yeah, let me know what your favorite games were. If you want to leave it down in the comments below, you can. But I definitely recommend a video response. Please do. I want to hear your stories behind your experiences with these different games. And if you got a camera, feel free to show them on camera, because I think it's fun. I think that's fun to just show your physical media sometimes. Alright, that's it for me. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to generate a little bit of discussion out of this, because I think this would just be a really fun experience. Alright, take care and peace out. I'll see y'all later.